This is the energy of ready for Shabbat, right?
Totally.
This is ready. Good morning.
Good morning.
Shabbat shalom. We have to start exactly at 10 now. We can't start a minute before. We can't start a minute later because of the Zoomiverse. So we have to be part of the Zoomiverse as a unified, so nobody's left out. So you can still talk to each other for another minute.
Yes.
Right, Rabbi?
Absolutely.
Okay. Make noise. Make some noise so we can quiet you down. There you go. Stretch. You feel good?
Shabbat shalom. So I think we're ready to welcome everybody in.
Yay.
And Devin, you can see as your family and friends fill up the screen. I'll turn it on gallery so you can see them.
Welcome, friends from all over, wherever you are. People in this room are waving at you, whether you can see them or not, especially Devin and family.
Yes, and I know, Devin, you have a lot of really important people in your life who are joining on Zoom in addition to the important people who are in person. If you feel comfortable on Zoom, feel free to turn your camera on. We would love to be able to see you throughout the service. If you're joining us in person, make sure that you've grabbed one of these prayer books, and when it's time for the Torah service, that you've got one of these packets. If you haven't, just send somebody from your row to come get it. And if you're joining us on Zoom, you'll find that throughout the service, we'll be putting a link to the prayer book into the chat for you to follow along with. We're going to begin on page 74 with the singing of Mottovum.
Mottovum, ohalecha Yaakov, ohalecha Yaakov, mishkenotecha Yisrael. Mottovum, ohalecha Yaakov, ohalecha Yaakov, mishkenotecha Yisrael. Last paragraph. Vani tefilati lecha Adonai et ratzon Elohim berov chasecha aneni be'emet ishecha Matovu alecha Yaakov.
Let's hear you sing with us.
Matovu alecha Yaakov, alecha Yaakov, mishkenotecha Yisrael. One last time. Matovu alecha Yaakov, alecha Yaakov, mishkenotecha Yisrael.
So in a moment, I'm going to call Devin up as as she places on her shoulders for the very first time a tallis, a ritual garment that symbolizes all the values, all the obligations, all of the laws of what it means to be a full-fledged adult member of the Jewish people. And to hand her that tallis, I'm going to call her dad, Mark, up. And you'll notice that she'll say a blessing, thanking God for the ability to wrap herself in this garment.
Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kitanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu lehitatef b'tzitzit.
We're on page 76 as we share in a special prayer for the body. Praised are you, Adonai, our God, sovereign of the universe, who formed the human being with skill, creating the body's many pathways and openings. It is well known before your throne of glory that if one of them be wrongly opened or closed, it would be impossible to endure and to stand before you. Blessed are you, Adonai, who heals all flesh, working wondrously. Baruch atah Adonai, rofek kol basar umafli la'asot. Page 78.
Just take a moment. It's really asking us to be awake to the miracle that's happening, the vibrations of aliveness of the body, but also of the spirit. Elohai neshama shenatata bi tehorahi, the soul, God, that you have breathed into me, it's exactly as it was meant to be. It is pure, it is perfect. And so our job is to turn toward that as a truth, lift our lives up through that lens. So we experiment this morning. Imagine what it would be like to feel this way about ourselves. Elohai neshama shenatata bi tehorahi Elohai neshama shenatata bi tehorahi Elohai Elohai neshama shenatata bi Elohai tehorahi. We'll try it on la 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 ya la 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 ya la la. Once more. Elohai neshama shenatata bi tehorahi Elohai neshama shenatata bi tehorahi baruch atah Adonai asher b'yado nefesh kol chai v'ruach kol b'sari.
We're on page 80. And these traditional prayers, which we're not going to necessarily pray exactly as they are on the page, speak about all of the different small miracles in life. The ability to stand on 2 feet, the ability to see, the ability even to distinguish day from night. And so instead, what we're going to do is we're going to add our own prayers to the mix. I'll invite you to raise your hand and to talk about things big and small that you're thankful for, things you might take for granted or things you might notice every day. And we'll pray those together. So do we have anybody who has some thoughts? And then if you're joining us virtually, feel free to put those into the chat as well. What are you thankful for? Yeah. So for being together. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, for being together. Someone else. Yeah. For good health. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, for good health. For friends. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, for our friends. For family. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, for family. For community. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam. For community. Online, we have family again. So why don't we say for loved ones? That includes all family and friends. Ready? Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam. For loved ones. And what an amazing thing, actually, if you really think about it, to be loved and to feel love. It's incredible.
I think about it all the time.
Yeah. And so we're on page 86 as we thank God for the ability to study a little Torah, which we're going to do in the prayer following. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kidshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu la'asok b'divrei Torah. We're on page 88. These are the things that are limitless. Elu divarim.
אלו דברים שאין להם שיעור, שאדם אוכל פירותיהם בעולם הזה, והקרן קיימת לו לעולם הבא, ואלו הן כיבוד אב ואם וגמילות חסדים, והשכמת בית המדרש שחרית וערבית, והכנסת אורחים וביקור חולים, והכנסת כלה ולוויית המת ועיון תפילה, והבאת שלום בין אדם לחברו, ותלמוד תורה כנגד כולם.
We chant responsively, page 94.
ברוך שעמד והיה העולם, ברוך הוא, ברוך עושה וראשית, ברוך אומר ועושה, ברוך עוזר ומקיים, ברוך מרחם על הארץ, ברוך מרחם על הבריות, ברוך משלם שכר טוב לרעיו, ברוך הילד וקיים לנצח, ברוך פודל ומציל,
ברוך שמו.
בשבחות ובזמרות נדליה לך ונשבח אחריך, ונזכיר שמך ונמליכך, מלכנו אלוהינו, יחיד חי העולמים, מלך משובח ומפרדי עד שמו הגדול, ברוך אתה אדוני, מלך מהולל, בתשבחות.
We're on page 96, Mizmor Shir Liyom HaShabbat.
מזמור שיר ליום השבת, טוב להודות לאדוני, ולזמר לשמך העליון, ולזמר לשמך העליון. מזמור שיר ליום השבת, טוב להודות לאדוני, ולזמר לשמך העליון, ולזמר לשמך העליון. להגיד בבוקר חסידיך, באמונתך בלילות, בלילות, עלי עשור, ועלי נער, עלי היגיון, וכינור, וכינור, מזמור שיר ליום השבת, טוב להודות לאדוני, ולזמר לשמך העליון, ולזמר לשמך העליון, כי שמחתני אדוני בפועליך, במעשה ידיך ארננה, מה גדלו מעשיך אדוני, מאוד עמקו מחשבותיך.
Let's hear you.
מזמור שיר ליום השבת, טוב להודות לאדוני, ולזמר לשמך העליון, ולזמר לשמך העליון. מזמור שיר ליום השבת, טוב להודות לאדוני.
We chant responsively on page 97. Ashrei Oshrei Vetecha, Od Yahalelucha Selah.
אשרי העם שככה לו, אשרי העם שאדוני אלוהיו.
Tehillah David, Armimcha Elohai HaMelech, V'avarcha Shimcha Le'olam Va'ed.
וכל יום אברכך, והללה שמך לעולם ועד.
Gadol Adonai U'Melal Me'od, V'li Gdolato Ein Cheker.
דור דור ישבח מעשיך, וגבורותיך יגידו.
Hadar Kevod Hodecha, V'divrei Niflotecha Asicha.
וזוז נורותיך יאמרו, וגדולתך אספחנה.
Zecher Rab Tuvecha Yabihu, V'tzid Chadacha Yiranenu.
חנון ורחום אדוני, ערך אפיים וגדול חסד.
Tov Adonai Lakov, V'rachamav Al Kol Ma'asav.
יודוך אדוני כל מעשיך, וחסידיך יברכוך.
Kevod Malchutecha Yomeru, Ugvuratacha Yetaberu.
להודיע לבני אדם גבורותיו, וכבוד הדר מלכותו.
Malchutecha Malchut Kol Amim, Umemshaltacha B'chol Dor V'ador.
סומך אדוני לכל הנופלים, וזוכף לכל הכפופים.
Hinei Kol Elecha Yesaberu, V'ata Noten Lahem Et Ochlam Be'ito.
פותח את ידיך, ומשביע לכל חי רצון.
Tzadik Adonai B'chol Doracha, V'chasid B'chol Ma'asav.
קרוב אדוני לכל קוראיו, לכל אשר יקראו באמת.
Ritzon Yirei Av Yaseh, V'yet Shavatam Yishma V'yoshiem. V'yet Korashayim Yashmi. Tehillat Adonai Yedaber Pi, V'yivarech Kol Basar Shem Kodsho Le'olam Va'ed. V'anachnu Nevarech Ya, Me'ata V'yad Olam. Hallelujah.
If you can believe it, this is just the warm-up. So this is our last moment for warming up. And then everything after this, we're meant to be fully here. So we take one word, we just kind of we try to hang out with it and see if we can figure out what it means for us. And the word is hallelujah. Praise be to you, to the oneness, to the mystery. So I invite you to join me. Hallelujah, hallelujah. Page 100. Hallelujah, 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 hallelujah. El Bikocho. Hallelujah, hallelujah. Birki auzo. Halle, here we go. Hallelujah. Hallelujah, 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 hallelujah. Big evurota, big papa. Hallelujah, hallelujah. Kerov good Lord. Hallelujah,
That's you,
hallelujah, 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 hallelujah. Beteka, shofar, shofar. Hallelujah, hallelujah. Benel vechinor. Hallelujah.
Hallelujah.
Hallelujah, 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 hallelujah. Betov umachol, umachol. Hallelujah, hallelujah. Bemirim ve'ugad. Hallelujah,
Hallelujah.
hallelujah, 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 hallelujah. Betzil tle shama. Hallelujah, hallelujah, betzil tle teshua. So this last verse says, Kol hanshama tehallelujah. Every one of us has in us a hallelujah. Every soul. If we don't know what it is, we should try just by saying it out loud. And it will come. Kol hanshama tehallelujah. Kol hanshama. Here's your chance. Hallelujah. 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 Hallelujah.
We're on on page 106, and we rise together for the Chatzi Kaddish.
יתגדל ויתקדש מרבה.
אמן.
ועלמד וברכותי וימליך מלכותי וחייכון ובבכון ובחיי בכל בית ישראל בעגלה ובזמן קריב ואמרו
אמן.
יהי שמרבה מבורך לעולם ולעולמי עלמיה יתברך וישתבח ויתפאר עמם ויתעשה ויתהדר ויתעלה ויתהלל שמדו קודשו בריחו לעילה מן כל ברכתה ושירתה תושבחתה ונחמתה דאמירה ביולמה ואמרו אמן. ברכו את אדוני המבורך.
Baruch Adonai Amvorach Leolam Vaed.
ברוך אדוני מבורך לעולם ועד.
We're seated together, page 110.
ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם יוצר אור ובורא חושך עושה שלום ובורא את הכל. ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם יוצר אור ובורא חושך עושה שלום ובורא את הכל. אור חדש על ציון תאיר ונזכה כולנו מהרה לאורו. ברוך אתה אדוני יוצר המאורות.
Page 112.
אהבה רבה אהבתנו אדוני אלוהינו חמלה גדולה ויתרה חמלת עלינו בעבור אבותינו מאימותינו שבטחו בך שבטחו בך שבטחו בך ותלמדם חוקי חיים כן תכוננו ותלמדנו המרחם רחם עלינו המרחם רחם עלינו ותן בליבנו להבין ולהשכיל לשמוע ללמוד וללמד לשמור ולעשות ולקיים את כל דברי תלמוד תורתך ואהבה בהאר עינינו בתורתך ודבק ומצוותיך מייחד לבבינו לאהבה וליראה שמך ולא נבוש ולא נקלם ולא ניכשל לעולם ועד כי בשם קודשך הגדול והנורא בטחנו נגילה ונשמחה ישועתך והביאנו לשלום מארבע כנפות הארץ ותוליכנו קוממיות לארצנו כי אל פועל ישועות אתה ובנו בחרת וקרבתנו לשמך הגדול לסלע באמת להודות לך ולייחל דחבבה. ברוך אתה אדוני הבוחר בעמו ישראל באהבה.
Page 114.
שמע ישראל אדוני אלוהינו אדוני אחד.
We turn to page 116 as we call Devin up to lead us in the Via Hafta.
ואהבת את אדוני אלוהיך בכל לבבך ובכל נפשך ובכל מאודך. והיו הדברים האלה אשר אנוכי מצווך היום על לבביך ושיננתם לבניך ודיברת בם בשבתך בביתך ובצאתך בדרך ושוכבך ובקומך וקשרתם להיות על ידיך, והיו לטוטפות בין עיניך, וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובשעריך. למען תזכרו ועשיתם את כל מצוותי, והייתם קדושים לאלוהיכם. אני אדוני אלוהיכם, אשר הוצאתי אתכם מארץ מצרים להיות לכם לאלוהים. אני אדוני אלוהיכם.
אדוני אלוהיכם אמת, יישר כוחך.
And so we're going to move now into page 120 as we join together in that special song that the Israelites sang as they crossed the sea, a song for freedom, Micha Mocha, page 122.
You can tell we like to clap in this community. This is a big clapping one, but also we start this way. Ya da la 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 la. Ya da la 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 la. Ya la 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 la. Ya da la 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 la. Micha mocha ba'elim Adonai. Join us. Micha mocha ba'elim Adonai. Micha mocha נדר בקודש, נורא תהילו תוספת, נורא תהילו תוספת. שירה חדשה, שיבחו גאולים, לשיבך על שפת הים יחד, כולם הורדו וימליכו, ואמרו, אדוני, מלוך לעולם ועד. אדוני מלוך לעולם ועד. One more time on ya ya la la ya la la ya la 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 ya la ma la la ya la la ya la la ya la la. Are able, we invite you to please rise.
As we call Devin up.
צור ישראל, קומה בעזרת ישראל, ופידי חינומך, יהודה וישראל. גואלנו, אדוני צבאות שמו, קדוש ישראל. ברוך את אדוני, גאל ישראל.
אדוני שפתי תפתח ופי יגיד תהילתך.
אדוני שפתי תפתח ופי יגיד תהילתך.
ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו ואלוהי אבותינו ואמותינו, אלוהי אברהם, אלוהי יצחק ואלוהי יעקב, אלוהי שרה, אלוהי רבקה, אלוהי רחל ואלוהי לאה, האל הגדול הגיבור והנורא, אל עליון גומל חסדים טובים וקונה הכל, וזוכר חסדי אבות ואימהות ומביא גלעד לבני בניהם, למען שמו באהבה, מלך חוזר ומושיע ומגן. ברוך אתה אדוני מגן אברהם ועזרת שרה. אתה גיבור לעולם אדוני מחיה הכל, אתה רב להושיע, משיב הרוח ומוריד הגשם, מחלקל חיים בחסד, Mechayeh hakol berahamim rabim. Somech noflim ferofeh cholim. Umatir asurim. Kayem emunato lishenei afar. Michamocha ba'al gevurot. Umido melach. Melech memid chayeh umatmiach Yeshua. V'ne'eman atalach ha'hayot hakol. Baruch atah Adonai mechayeh hakol.
נקדש את שמך בעולם, כי שמש מקדישים אותו בשמי מרום, ככתוב על יד נביאך, ויקרא זה אל זה ואמר, קדוש קדוש קדוש, אדוני צבאות, מלוך כל הארץ, אדיר אדירנו אדוני אדוננו מאדיר שמך בכל הארץ ברוך כבוד אדוני ממקום אחד הוא אלוהינו הוא אבינו הוא מלכנו הוא מושיענו והוא ישמענו ברחמיו לעיני כל חי אני אדוני אלוהיך ימלוך אדוני לעולם אלוהיך ציון לדור ודור הללויה לדור ודור לדור ודור נגיד לך לדור ודור לדור ודור נגיד לך ולנצח נצחים קדושתך מקדיש ולנצח נצחים קדושתך מקדיש לדור ודור נגידות לך לדור ודור נגידות לך ושבחך אלוהינו מפינו לא ימוש לעולם ועד ושבחך אלוהינו מפינו לא ימוש לעולם ועד ברוך אתה אדוני האל הקדוש.
Take a moment for silent reflection, either praying the traditional words on the page through page 142 or whatever words are in your heart. There are weeks when we need to pray for peace more than others. This is one of those weeks where our prayers have real meaning. And as we look to see what's happening in Ukraine and we fear for those lives that will be lost, we pray all the more so that God will bring peace, that God will bring healing to this world, that God will bring wholeness. And so we turn to a moment of peace, both in English and in Hebrew, as we call those prayers out into the universe, hoping that God can hear us and grant a little bit of peace to a region that feels with so much unrest. And so I'm going to call to the screen two different sets of readers. Devin, your grandparents, Toby and Stuart, and your Aunt Aviva, who will read a prayer on page 141 now.
Grant us peace, your most precious gift, O eternal source of peace, and give us the will to proclaim its message to all the peoples of the earth. Bless our country as a safeguard of peace, its advocate among the nations.
Amen.
May contentment reign within our borders, health and happiness within our homes. Strengthen the bonds of friendship and fellowship among all the inhabitants of our world. Plant virtue in every soul, and may the love of your name hallow every home and every heart. Praised are you, Adonai, who blesses your people with peace. Baruch atah Adonai, hamvarech et amo Yisrael bashalom.
Amen. Thank you both. Thank you all. We'll lift those words up as well. Page 140. Sim shalom tova uvracha. Sim shalom tova uvracha. Sing together. Sim shalom tova uvracha. Sim shalom tova uvracha. We pray for peace and goodness and blessing. Chena v'chesed v'rachamim. Chena v'chesed v'rachamim. Sim shalom tova uvracha. Sim shalom tova uvracha. Upon all of us, Aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael amecha. Aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael. Aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael. Amecha. Sim shalom tova uvracha. Sim shalom tova uvracha. Tova uvracha.
We're going to move now into Seder Kriyat HaTorah, into the reading of our Torah, and a few honors to speak of. The first is our Ark Openers. So Miles, you'll be coming up. In addition, your cousin Michaela. The Torah is going to be passed Lidor Vador from generation to generation. So Devin, you're going to get it from your parents, who will get it from your grandmother Miriam. And so I want to invite us all to rise as we turn to page 244 for our Torah service.
Ein kamocha va'Elohim Adonai, v'ein kemasecha, malchutecha malchut kol olamim, umemshaltecha bechol dor vador. Adonai melech, Adonai malach, Adonai yimloch leolam vaed. Adonai oz le'amo yiten, Adonai yivarech et amo v'shalom. Avarachamim heitiv avirtzoncha et Zion. Tivnei chomot Yerushalayim. Tivnei chomot Yerushalayim. Kivecha levad bataknu, melech eram v'nisa, Adon olamim. Ki mitzion tetzei Torah, Ki mitzion tetzei Torah, udevar Adonai merushalayim. Baruch shenatan Torah, Torah. Baruch shenatan Torah, Torah. Le'amo Yisrael b'kdushato. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Echad Eloheinu, Gadol Adonenu, Kadosh Shemo. Gadlul Adonai iti, uneromema Shemo Yagdav. Yadai dai 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 yadai dai 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 yadai dai 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 dai. Yadai dai 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 yadai dai 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 yadai dai 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 dai. Yadai dai dai. Yadai dai dai dai. Yai dai dai yai dai 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 yai dai 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 yai dai 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 yai dai.
So if you got any candy that was passed out, we're just going to ask that you take it, put it in your pocket, put it on the floor. That way it doesn't crinkle. You'll know exactly when you need it. You'll see people start to throw it once we sing Siman Tov Mazel Tov. But if we're passing the candy out right now, why don't we just put it down for a moment? Because it's our custom at our congregation not just to hear Torah read, but to have it contextualized, to understand what the meaning is for today and for our lives. And so every week we're blessed with a different student who is our teacher. And so it's my pleasure to call up Devin, our teacher this morning.
Shabbat Shalom. My portion is called Parshat Vayakel, and it covers many issues including the importance of Shabbat, the death penalty, and the tabernacle. As you may know, the tabernacle is a portable sanctuary constructed by Moses as a place to worship while the Jews wandered to the Promised Land. Of all the topics in my portion, I found the one on Shabbat to be the most interesting. In my portion, it specifically warns us not to break Shabbat. It says, "On the 6 days work may be done, but on the seventh day you shall have a Sabbath of complete rest, holy to the Lord. Whoever does any work on it shall be put to death. You shall kindle no fire throughout your settlements on the Sabbath day." What this commandment is saying is that keeping Shabbat is so important that breaking it will be punishable by death. In the Torah, the penalty for almost every sin is death. It can be for something as minor as turning on a light switch on the Sabbath, or as serious as committing murder. But here, Shabbat seems to hold a particularly special place in Judaism. So after reading my portion, I was left with the question: what is the purpose of Shabbat? Why does the Torah make such a big deal about it? There are many answers to my question. In the Torah, there are two traditional reasons given for observing Shabbat. One traditional reason we observe Shabbat is that the Lord made heaven and earth and sea, and all that is in them, and he rested on the seventh day. Therefore, the Lord blessed the Sabbath day and hallowed it. This means that God created the world in 6 days and rested on the seventh. So we should rest too after a busy week of work and other responsibilities. Another view states, "You were a slave in the land of Egypt, and the Lord your God freed you from there with a mighty hand and an outstretched arm. Therefore, the Lord your God has commanded you to observe the Sabbath day." This means God decided to free us from Egypt and granted us the luxury of rest. We once were not as lucky as we are now and are commanded to rest because we once could not. Although I respect both views, I like the second view more, that observing Shabbat helps to remind us that we were not always free to rest. While I am fortunate enough to have the luxury of rest, I have empathy and understanding for people who do not, such as those who must work on the weekend, travel to care for others, or have other obligations that prevent them from observing Shabbat. This view of Shabbat's importance tells us we have earned the right to rest and shown we deserve it, while being mindful that we were not always this lucky. Resting forces us to focus and take stock, to appreciate our freedom from slavery, from work, from whatever it is that distracts us, while never forgetting that there are those who still do not enjoy this freedom. But I have reasons of my own for why Shabbat is such a big deal. Shabbat is important to me because it's one of the only times of the week my whole family is truly together. Although we don't observe Shabbat the traditional way, it still holds a special meaning to me. On Friday nights, we watch a movie together and we eat in the living room. This is not only fun, but it brings us together in a way that we aren't during the week. Though, choosing a movie we can all agree on can be a challenge. Even though what we do isn't traditional, in some ways it is. We don't work and we rest. Those are both the most important rules of Shabbat, and in my opinion, they are meant to be interpreted. But Shabbat isn't the only part of Judaism that gives me focused time with family. During Passover, we travel to Florida to visit my grandparents and extended family. And for Rosh Hashanah, we go to Long Island to visit my aunt, uncle, and cousins. Although these events don't happen as often as Shabbat, they're still as important and meaningful to me. All Jewish holidays are an opportunity for me and my family to bond over things that we don't do on a daily basis. Because of this focused family time, it helps us feel more connected to Judaism and its traditions through the people we love. Indeed, Judaism and its traditions encourage us to make time for family, but we don't only need to rely on Judaism, or Shabbat for that matter, to get that focus. On any random day, there's a lot my family and I do to be more present with one another. For example, we do not use screens at mealtime, we take family walks after dinner, enjoy hiking and other adventures on weekends, and love to play our favorite card game, Exploding Kittens. We are also there for each other to talk and to listen. Lately, Miles and I have started baking together, and we've tried to help our cats Bo and Arrow lose some weight by getting them to move a bit more each day. The key is to carve out the time and know that any distractions can wait. Judaism gives us a framework for this, but we can do it anytime. Each week, Shabbat challenges us to be more present. Whether you observe Shabbat or not, we can all take its lessons to heart and try to incorporate the spirit of Shabbat into our lives each and every day. Thank you, and Shabbat Shalom.
Rabbi, I have a feeling that this community is going to want to give love, probably in the form of clapping for Devin. So we should teach them, because this isn't a performance, of course, as we know, and yet we want to show Devin our love and our honor for what she gave us. So we take our hands and we rub them together really, really fast, and we make it warm as possible, and then we share all of that warmth with Devin and let her know. Shkoach.
Shkoach. So we're going to move now into the actual reading of our Torah. If you walked in and you saw a packet, hopefully you grabbed it. If not, we've got some there. In addition, I want to invite anybody who's joining us on Zoom to look into your chat. The packet's there as well. We're going to be reading from the very beginning of the Torah portion, verses 1 through 10, with 3 different aliyot. And so for that first aliyah, I want to call up your grandmother Miriam. Ta'amod Miriam bat Benyamin ve'chana la'aliyah la'Torah.
ברכו את אדוני המבורך. ברוך אדוני המבורך לעולם ועד. ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם, אשר בחר בנו מכל העמים, ונתן לנו את תורתו. ברוך אתה אדוני נותן התורה.
Amen. Vayakel Moshe et kol adat b'nei Yisrael vayomer alehem ele hadvarim asher tziva Adonai la'asot otam sheshet yamim te'aseh melacha uvayom hashvi yeh lachem kodesh Shabbat Shabbaton la'Adonai kol ha'osevo melacha yumat Lo teva'aru esh b'chol moshvotehem b'yom haShabbat.
ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם, אשר נתן לנו תורת אמת, וחיי עולם נטע בתוכנו. ברוך אתה אדוני נותן התורה.
And so, Devin, now we're going to call your parents, Susan and Mark, up. Ya'amdu, Shoshana bat Zev, v'Miriam, Yair Shlomo, ben Shimon, v'Tobi la'aliyah la'Torah.
Baruch et Adonai Hamvarach. Baruch Adonai Hamvarach le'olam va'ed. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher bachar banu mikol ha'amim v'natan lanu et torato. Baruch atah Adonai noten ha'torah.
Amen. Vayomer Moshe el kol adat b'nei Yisrael lemor zeh hadavar asher tziva Adonai lemor. Kehu me'ichem teruma l'Adonai kol nediv libo yevi'eh et termat Adonai zahav v'hesef unhoshet uhelet v'argaman v'tola'at shani v'shesh v'izim.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher natan lanu torat emet v'chayei olam nata b'tochenu. Baruch atah Adonai noten ha'torah.
Amen. So you guys can stay up here. And Miles, why don't you come on up too? That way you can stand with your parents as we're going to call your sister up formally as bat mitzvah. Ta'amod, ta'amod, ta'amod. Laila tal bat Shoshana ve'yir shlomo l'aliyah la'Torah. Chizki ve'imsei.
Baruch et Adonai Hamvarach. Baruch Adonai Hamvarach le'olam va'ed. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher bachar banu mikol ha'amim v'natan lanu et torato. Baruch atah Adonai noten ha'torah. Ve'orot elim me'odamim, ve'orot techashim va'atzei shitim, ve'shemen lama'or, uvesamim l'shemen hamidcha, ve'liktoret hasamim, ve'avnei shoham, ve'avnei miluim, la'efod ve'lachoshen, ve'chol chacham lev bachem, yevo'u ve'ya'asu, et kol asher tziva Adonai. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher natan lanu Torat emet v'chayei olam nateh b'torheinu. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen. So we're going to say a special blessing over Joyous first. Thanking God for the ability to be here today. The Shechianu, we're going to say, Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, Shechianu v'kiyemanu v'higianu lazman. And we shower Devin and her family very softly with candy. Siman tov u'mazel tov u'mazel tov. Siman tov u'mazel tov.
Siman tov, mazel tov, siman tov, yelan.
So if we could have everybody who is under 18, let's say, come grab some pieces of candy for yourself. Just don't eat them here, but we need it all picked up before we can go on. All up, yeah. All right. So when it's all up, here, we can just keep on. Yeah.
All right, us now. Hold it myself. Okay. Sorry, got a little out of control there. Yeah. Take it away. Where's Devin? Come closer. Devin, it has been so rewarding as your parent to watch you dedicate and challenge yourself to meet the moment of this incredible day. You treated the task of preparing for your bat mitzvah with respect, focus, and diligence, and arrived today confident, ready, and as is your way, pretty chill. And it was well earned. You did such a great job. I hope you are as proud of yourself as we are of you. But it's not just your commitment and discipline in preparing for today that I admire. I marvel at how you treat most challenges you face with a stoic, steadfast, almost matter-of-fact calm. This will serve you well in life, and frankly, it already has. I see you emerging from a very challenging couple of years with strong bonds of friendship, a solid sense of self, and an unwavering commitment to doing your best, and perhaps most importantly, being true to yourself. I cherish this about you. I see so clearly the adult you are becoming, and I like her very much. My blessing for you is that you continue to keep a level head, never waver from your belief in yourself and your commitment to those things that are most important to you. Surround yourself with those who treasure your subtle humor, your creativity, loyalty, curiosity, and desire to do good in the world. I'm so excited for all that lies ahead, and I can't wait to watch you tackle it all. And if it's okay with you, I'll be holding your hand along the way. It calms me down. I love you. Mazel tov and happy birthday.
Dear Devin, as Mom just said, we couldn't be more proud of you than we are today. The last couple of years have been a challenge for everyone. During this period and prior, you have shown yourself to be a focused, thoughtful, and dedicated person. You've had this approach with your general studies in school, as well as Hebrew school, with great success. I admire your consistency and low-drama way of working and playing. It is a testament to your resilience and maturity beyond your years. These same attributes have been recognized by many of your teachers and other adults throughout your life, which only make me prouder to be your dad. My beloved Devin, I offer you this blessing today on your 13th birthday as you begin your journey as an adult in the Jewish community. I hope that you continue to be the good student you are in the classroom, an observant person of the world. As you continue to form your own opinions and make tough decisions, draw upon the lessons and wisdom from your parents, teachers, and Jewish values to help you. In this age of social media, maintain your self-confidence and stay anchored to who you are and what is right, no matter what others say. Keep good people around you and don't waste time with others. Embrace your silliness. Everyone likes silly, and it helps get through a tough day. And be the person who pays mitzvahs forward. Mazel tov to you on this special day. You will always be my favorite daughter.
We pause for a moment with our Torah out before us to think of those who are ill and who are in need of healing, who are in need of a refuah shlema, complete healing of body, mind, soul, and spirit. And so I'll invite you to turn to page 253. And I'll ask that you share names of anyone that you're thinking of as my eyes go around the room, or if you're joining us on Zoom, that you put those names into the chat. Again, page 253. Mi shebeirach avoteinu mikor habracha leimotenu. May the source of strength who bless the ones before us, help us find the courage to make our lives a blessing, and let us say, Amen. Mi shebeirach imotenu mikor habracha leavotenu. Bless those in need of healing with refuah shlema, the renewal of body, the renewal of spirit, and let us say, Amen. We turn now to page 259 as we hear a special prayer for the state of Israel. And I want to call up Devin, your Uncle Mark, and your Aunt Keisha to read that reading now.
O Heavenly One, Protector and Redeemer of Israel, Bless the state of Israel, which marks the dawning of hope for all who seek peace. Shield it beneath the wings of your love. Spread over it the canopy of your peace. Send your light and truth to all who need and advise, guiding them with your good counsel. Establish peace in the land and fullness of joy for all who dwell there. Amen.
I'm going to invite us to rise as we lift and dress our Torah.
Biyad Moshe Yismechu Hashamayim Yismechu Hashamayim. Hayam Umelo. Please be seated.
In the Jewish tradition, we don't just read a little bit of Torah, but we also read an accompanying section from the books of the prophets. And so if you had that packet, I'll invite you to open it toward the back of the packet, the book of 2 Kings, chapter 12. And we're actually going to begin with the blessing before the Haftarah, before we move formally into that Haftarah. And so, once again, I want to call Devin up, who will be reading this section.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher bachar bin v'im tovim v'ratza v'divrehem hane'emarim be'emet. Baruch atah Adonai habocher b'Torah uv'Moshe avdo uv'Yisrael amo uv'binvi'ei ha'emet v'tzedek. Vayas Yehoash hayashar Be'enei Adonai kol yamav asher horahu Yehoyada hakohen rak habamot lo saru od ha'am mizabahim katerim babamot. Vayomer Yehoash el hakohanim kol kesef hakodashim asher yuvav et Adonai kesef over Ish kesef nafshot erko kol kesef asher ya'aleh al levish lehavi beit Adonai yiku lahem hakohanim ish me'et makaro vehem yehazku et bedek habayit lechol asher yimateh sham badek vahi bishnat esrim v'shalosh Shana la melech Yehoash lo hisku hakohanim et bedek habayit. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam tzur kol ha'olamim sadik b'chol hadorot ha'el ha'ne'eman ha'omer ve'oseh hamdaber umkayem shekol devarav emet v'tzedek al ha'torah ve'al ha'avodah ve'al hanvi'im ve'al yom ha'shabbat hazeh Shenata talanu Adonai Eloheinu likdusha v'limnucha lechavod ultivaret al hakol Adonai Eloheinu anachnu modim lach umvarhimotach yitbarach shimcha befi kol hai tamid le'olam va'ed baruch atah Adonai mekadesh ha'shabbat.
You can also breathe a sigh. You did it, and you did great. So we're going to move now into returning our Torah to the Ark. And so open up our Ark. I want to call up Ben Stoll and Dylan Joseph. We rise together.
Those are able.
חדש ימינו כקדם.
Shabbat Shalom. Devin, thank you for such a thoughtful and insightful teaching, unpacking the meaning of the Sabbath, of Shabbat, of why we should rest, and the importance really of it was a meta sermon on what are we doing here today. For you, it was all about community and family, which honestly is what it is to be sitting here in community and in family. And you forget how important that really is as you're going through your days. And it's nothing like a pandemic for you to realize just what it means for a group of people that you care about to gather together in one place. And so since you did such a great job about talking about Shabbat, I don't want to talk about that day of the week. I actually want to talk about the other 6. Because I want to as a foil to what you are talking about, talk about the beginning of the line that you chanted and that you quoted at the very beginning of your portion. You said, 6 days shall you work, but on the 7th is a day of rest. So I want to pose this question for you to think about, which is, if you got the chance for Shabbat to be longer than it was, would you take it? So Shabbat, if you remember, is 1 day a week where you're supposed to rest. You're not supposed to be doing this work. And on 6 days, you live your life. You go to school, you go to work, you make an impact on the world. Now, Shabbat is special because it's considered a kind of taste of the world to come, a taste of heaven. A time when you put your cares away, where you put your feet up, when you surround yourself with community, when you feel the holiness of God around you, and the worries of the everyday are supposed to float away. Now, wouldn't it be great to have an extra day to do that a week? But in fact, our tradition is very explicit. And if you look at the Hebrew, it doesn't say 6 days a week you might choose to work. Instead, it says 6 days a week you shall work. 6 days a week you must work. 6 days a week are for work. And 1 day a week is for rest. Because our tradition understands that it's really important to make our mark on the world around us. And that if we had the option to just hang out in bed all day for 7 days, to never put on real shoes, only wear slippers, just watch Netflix the whole time, we shouldn't be doing that. It's a wasted life, and it undercuts the rest that we need on Shabbat. Now, to understand how that works, I want to use a metaphor, not a Jewish metaphor, but rather a metaphor from a spiritual community that many of us probably participate in, not even realizing that it's a spiritual community. Raise your hand if you do yoga. So my favorite part of yoga is Shavasana. I'm sure it is for many of you as well. If you don't know what that is, it's the corpse pose at the end of yoga where you basically just lie there for 5 minutes and you don't move, palms up. And the reason it works is because you've done the hard work. Let's say it's a 45-minute class. You've done the hard work for 40 minutes to take in all of that in the 5 minutes when you're lying down. It's for your muscles to basically understand that all of those hard poses that you've been doing, all of that tension that is in your body at this point, all of the breathing, all of the sweating, your body kind of receives that gift in the 5 minutes. Now, I'm sure many of us have laid down for 5 minutes without having done the hard work first. And if that's you, then what you may not realize is that you're doing a version of Shavasana, but it doesn't feel the same. You need the 40 minutes of hard work to get what you're going to get out of that last 5 minutes. And that's the way Shabbat is. Because in fact, the week and what we do in this world are holy, which is why when our ancient rabbis are racking their brain, trying to figure out what are the things that you shouldn't do on Shabbat, they find a metaphor in this week's portion to help them figure it out. Now, they could have come up with any number of lists of what it is that you can and can't do on Shabbat in order to, quote, check the box on rest. But what they do is they look to the holiest act that the Jewish people did in the desert, which is to build a home for God, to build a tabernacle for God. And to do that, by the way, they had to make wall hangings, which means that they had to skin animals and put those up as wall hangings. They had to dye things. They also had to bake things, because part of being in that kind of tabernacle, that place for God, is that there was always bread out and that there was always flour being ready for offerings to God. And so anything involving cooking was not okay on Shabbat. That included, by the way, sowing and reaping and harvesting your land. Because they built the tabernacle, anything that involves building is not considered okay technically to do on Shabbat. And so looking at what it would take to build this building, right, this tent of meeting where God would come to us in the wilderness, they realized that there were 39 actions, from sowing to reaping to building to dyeing, that caused this building to come into play. And so if you are a traditional Jew, you don't do any of those 39 things. Now, are those 39 things mundane? The answer is no. In fact, it is holy to reap. It is holy to sow. It is holy to dye animals' hides. It is holy to build. It is holy to make the fire that the meat of the sacrifices will go on. Every one of the things that you're not supposed to do on Shabbat are in fact uber special, because they're associated with the holiest of actions possible. The world around us is a wondrous, amazing, magnificent place. There is holiness imbued in everything that we do in the world, even if it feels incredibly mundane. Shabbat isn't just set aside for holiness. Shabbat, in a way, is a different kind of holiness, because we ignore the holiness of the 6 days, and by doing so, we add a little extra feature to the holiness of today. Which, by the way, helps us understand the metaphor of where Shabbat came from. Devin, you spoke wonderfully about God making the world in 6 days. Now, was that act any mundane? Making light and darkness, making the sun, the moon, the stars, making the plants and the animals and humanity. All of that is imbued with incredible holiness. Just because God chose to rest on the 7th day doesn't undercut how wonderful those first 6 days of creation are. We need that interplay. And Shabbat cannot subsume our lives because the world needs us to act. Which, by the way, is the reason that if you hypothetically forget the prayer that ends Shabbat, because, by the way, we end Shabbat. It's a prayer which is called the Habdalah Prayer. Shabbat continues on. But it only continues on to Tuesday. Because according to our tradition, Shabbat can't subsume the week. There has to be more work in the week than Shabbat in order to make Shabbat meaningful. And the best articulation of that comes actually in a story in the Talmud, an ancient book of Jewish literature and wisdom, which speaks about a rabbi whose name is Shimon Bar Yochai, who one day was bad-mouthing the Roman government who were in charge at the time. The Romans find out, and he has to flee to a cave, to hide in the cave because the Romans want to arrest him. Now, a miracle happens in that cave, and he and his son, who are in the cave, basically are fed, and they get to drink water, and they bury themselves. It's a weird story. It's got a lot of metaphor to it. They bury themselves up to their neck so that they're basically just talking heads, learning and dreaming, but not doing. And they live in that cave for 7 years. Now, they have experienced the longest Shabbat in the history of the Jewish people. They have not added a thing to the world. Instead, they have just learned and grown. They have received. It is the ultimate Shavasana. 7 years later, they emerge. And because they haven't lived in the world for any period of time, they're not ready for the world. They see somebody plowing, and they get so angry at that person who is plowing that, in fact, again, a legend, lasers shoot out of their eyes, and they consume that person. And so God kind of appears and says, you know what, you guys actually aren't ready to come back to the world. And they go back into that cave for another year until they come out again. And they see somebody right before Shabbat gathering sticks, which they're going to use for kindling to make the Shabbat lights. And again, they get mad. And you have to imagine, like, their eyes start glowing again. Until finally, Shimon Bar Yochai pauses, and he pauses his son too. And he realizes, and this is kind of the moral of this legend, that there's tremendous interplay between what you do during the week and what you do on Shabbat. Could you imagine if that man hadn't been gathering the sticks? That man would not have a light to usher in Shabbat. Could you imagine if nobody reaped and sowed during the week? We would have no challah. We would have no bread to eat and to enjoy ourselves on Shabbat. What gives meaning to your life isn't just the pauses, it's the things you do. It's the things you learn in school. It's the work you do at work. It is the relationships that you foster. It's hopping in the car to drive to that person's house. It is researching that thing on the internet to grow in wisdom so that you can educate other people. Shabbat may be a time to pull back, but the rest of the week has to be a time to lean in. The world needs every single one of us to make our mark. And if we don't do that, it makes resting pointless. In our world, we talk so much about the importance of rest because many of us burn out during the week. But the reason we burn out is because often we feel like we don't want to waste our time. We feel instead like we want to drink in every moment of this world. We feel like we need to make a mark with every person around us. And as much as sometimes that feeling can be toxic and we need Shabbat to check us and to help us pull back, we have to be careful not pulling back too much. Because this time in this world is a gift. The mark you can make is a gift. The relationships you can have is a gift. And for as much as we like to talk about the one day, it is so important to realize that those other 6 days have equal holiness. So, Devin, I want to call you up to the bima. Because as I've been working with you, and Cantor and Ronnie have as well, we've seen that you have a good balance, actually. I think that you get the notion of Shabbat and pulling back because you talked about how important it is. But I got to say, you're pretty good at the other 6 days too. I think you know what hard work looks like. You know what it means to really care about community and the world and to not absolve yourself of the responsibility to get your hands dirty with the things around you. but rather to jump in. You worked so hard to be here today. You worked so hard at almost everything you do. And it's clear from talking to you that you have a passion, a low-key passion, but a passion for the world. Keep doing that. Because the world needs hard workers like you. They need people with vision like you. They need people who can see a goal and who can get there like you. The world is so broken. It's so hard sometimes to see all of those suffering. But if you have the tenacity that I've seen in you, the drive that I've seen in you, the desire to be the best that you can be, which I've seen in you, there's no question that the world is going to benefit from you. And then you can sit back once every 7 days, and you can put your feet up, and you can rest assured that those other 6 days were worth it, because you added your gift at every moment that you could. And so I want to call Cantor Greenberg up and Ronnie Pressman up as we offer you this blessing, the oldest blessing that we have to give in our tradition. And I'll invite us to lift our hands up to help us give the blessing. And if you're joining us virtually, I'll put you on gallery and you can do the exact same. Lift your hands up. May God bless you and may God protect you. May God cause God's face to shine upon you and give you grace. May God always smile upon you and grant you a life of wholeness and peace.
May it be God's will, and let us all say,
Amen. So stay up here for just one more moment, because I want to call one of our past presidents of our congregation, Marge Grayson, up to offer you a few gifts and some greetings.
Mazel tov, Devin. You did an outstanding job, and I'm a last-minute substitute today, but I'm really thrilled because this was my parsha for my adult bat mitzvah on this bima, so it just felt really special to be a part of it, and I literally struggled with the exact same verses you did, so it's kind of cool. Now, we have a bunch of things here, and if I take them out, we'll never get them back, but I just wanted to show everybody that one of the things you're getting is a Kiddush Cup. Could this have been better planned? I think it's perfect, obviously. So again, mazel tov to you. You did a fabulous job, and may you go from strength to strength. And now you can sit down.
So we're going to rise together, page 282 for Aleinu.
עלינו לשבח לאדון הכל, לתת גדולה ליוצר בראשית, שלא עשנו כגויי הארצות, ולא שמנו כמשפחות האדמה, שלא שם חלקנו כהם, וגורלנו ככל המונם. ואנחנו קוראים ומשתחווים ומודים לפני מלך מלכי המלכים הקדוש ברוך הוא. ונאמר והיה אדוני למלך על כל הארץ, ביום ההוא יהיה אדוני אחד, ושמו אחד.
We turn together to page 294 as our thoughts turn to those that we've loved and who we've lost. As my eyes go around the room, I'll invite you to share names of people for whom you're thinking, or if you're joining us on Zoom, feel free to put those names into the chat. We join together. Yitkadav v'yitkadash shemei Rabbam, v'yamad divrach yirateh v'yamlech malchuteh, v'chayachon v'yomachon v'chayed l'chol Beit Yisrael, b'gala uvizman kariv v'imru amen. Yehi shmei Rabba mevarach le'olam u'lamei almaya, yiparach v'yishtabach v'yipa'ar v'yitramam v'yitnaseh, v'yitadar v'yitalev v'yitalal shemid kudusha b'rechu, le'elam min kol birchata v'shirata, tushbechata v'nechamata, damiram b'yamav v'imru amen. Yehi shalom Rabba min shemaya, v'chaim aleinu ve'al Israel v'imru amen. Ose shalom b'mromav, hu ya'aseh shalom, aleinu ve'al Israel v'imru amen. Ose shalom b'mromav, hu ya'aseh shalom,
aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael ve'imeru amen. Ose shalom b'mromav, hu ya'aseh shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael ve'al kol Yoshvei Tevel amen. Once more. Ose shalom b'mromav, hu ya'aseh shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael ve'al kol Yoshvei Tevel v'yimeru amen. Shabbat shalom.
Shalom. So you can take a seat. We're going to turn our attention to the screen for Kiddush and Motzi. And then because we've got so many people who are on the screen, we're going to be showing just a short multimedia presentation, a montage in honor of Devin. And though our service will formally conclude once we do Kiddush and Motzi. We're going to welcome to the screen your grandfather George and your Aunt Michelle to lead Kiddush and Motzi.
Like unmute. There you go. Okay, Dad, why don't you do the blessing of the wine?
You sit.
Yeah, sit. Yeah, so say it.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam borei pri hagafen.
Done drinking? Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam. Great. Hamotzi lechem min haaretz.
Amen.
Break
So
it.
for those who are joining us virtually, feel free to put into the chat any last congratulations. We'll be saving that chat for Devin. And if you're joining us on YouTube, we're going to say goodbye to those